New York, big city of dreams. New York, big city of dreams.
What's going on? This is Jay Ellis from the Nick of Time Show. Here giving you that Knicks talk just in the nick of time. And here to give you some Knicks news about Precious Achiuwa, because Precious Achiuwa has returned to the New York Knicks, according to Ian Begley. And we are going to talk about it all. But before we talk about it all, I'm going to introduce you to my guy. It is the Latin assassin, Lee Escobedo. What's going on, Lee?
Our main man, Precious Achiuwa, back in the fold. I love this kid. I mean, I think most of Twitter knows that on January 5th, I made my most liked tweet ever, which was Precious was and will be a huge addition for the Knicks. That came true within a month of him being on the team. He's a dog, great mentality, huge motor, incredible heart, and an all-around great person on and off the court. So happy that he's back with the Knicks, but we will see for how long.
Yeah, we will see for how long because, listen, man, according to Ian Begley, all right, Ian Begley said that he will be back with the Knicks, but he also added a very interesting tidbit. He said Achiuwa agreed to waive his no-trade clause as part of the agreement per SNY sources. Now, you know, when players sign a one-year deal, a no-trade clause is usually automatically put into that deal, but he agreed to waive it, and Knicks essentially asked for it, which makes you go, It makes you believe that Precious Achiuwa essentially will not be here past December. Like that's what that screams to me. The fact that the Knicks have been looking for a backup center, turning over every rock, every pebble, it's taking this long for Precious Achiuwa to even get signed. To me, that signifies, hey, we like you. We like what you did last year. Did well for us when you were here, but we really don't see you as don't answer for the backup center position long term. And what do you think of that?
Very possible. I think Precious and Leon is a great example of just where this Knicks front office has taken this team. Before, teams are like to waive my no trade clause. Hell no.
Exactly.
Because players came to New York and they never lost their leverage. The team never had leverage in negotiations, and they constantly got fleeced. So now we're an opportunity where a player who's only here for like 6 months, maybe 5 months of actual playable basketball, is now willing to waive his no trade clause and basically say, hey, look, the fate of this year is in your hands. That's a pretty great optic for the rest of the NBA to look at. Like, man, Leon Rose does good by his players. And he's a great, shrewd front office man. And Precious probably knows too, hey, wherever he sends me will either be an opportunity where I can still compete, or an opportunity where, because it's only a one-year deal, I can really show out, stat pad, and get the bad in that Nets contract.
I agree. And listen, like Lee said, Precious Achiuwa, when he was here, he proved to be useful because there was a time when we absolutely needed him. And as a starter for the Knicks, he averaged 12.5 points a game at 9.5 rebounds. He was a double-double machine, and he filled in pretty well for us. Were pretty impactful. And myself, I was not impressed with him when he got here. I was just like, what is he doing? He seems off. To me, he didn't really fit, but I guess it was more of a time thing. We have to get used to the team, get used to where your spots are, and just be comfortable in our system. And after he got comfortable, he started to prove to be very useful for us. But I will say though, long term, I never really saw him as a center, although he can play some center because he's 6'8" and he's like a small 6'8" at that. So for me, if he really wants to me, he should absolutely bare minimum learn to shoot a 3-point shot. So at least he can be like a 3-and-D power forward. That's the way I at least see this long term, because for me, even though you can guard some centers some of the times, a lot of traditional centers, he's going to have a long day guarding. Now, he's had some success guarding like Valanciunas. Not Valanciunas. What's the center on the Bulls?
Vucevic.
Vucevic. He had actually decent showing versus Vucevic, but then he would get clobbered by Gobert and other bigger centers. Where I was just like, oh my gosh, this is a massacre. We need to get a bigger body in here because it just looked like David versus Goliath. So I think long term for him in the NBA, he needs to develop that jump shot. I think his career might depend on it actually. But for now, for the Knicks, considering the center free agent market or trade market rather, I think this is a good move for the Knicks, at least short term.
Definitely agree with you. I think about a couple guys in the past, those kind of tweeners, just like Precious, that were in the NBA and were very successful. I'm thinking about the Manimal out of Denver with the
Yeah.
Nuggets. And then there was a guy who won the Sixth Man of the Year with the Clippers. And then within 2 seasons later, I think he was completely out the NBA.
Mm.
I can't remember his name, but he was a really solid power forward, but neither could shoot. Both were very good athletes. Both could guard the perimeter fairly well. They were both switchable defenders too.
Right.
Both had like all three had better handles than usual. Like if you cross a 3-point line, they can probably go from that point to the basket.
Close.
And
Yeah.
yes, and with like 4 or 5 dribbles. So Precious is that skilled. He just can't shoot, and that's going to be imperative for him, not just to have a extended career in the NBA, but also his trade value this season. Teams going to look; they care about spacing. If he's
Yeah.
not hitting a 15-foot catch and shoot or a pick and pop opportunity, the stock is going to go down, and you might have to start adding another pick to any type of trades you do to unload on him instead of him just being the centerpiece.
I agree, and I think it really showed itself during the Indiana series as well when players started dropping like flies, and we had to play Precious a little bit more. Indiana was purposely leaving him open, and it caused a lot of spacing issues. So he needs to get that down. Definitely needs to get that down. But kudos for the Knicks who actually pulled this off. Got him for cheap. Got him to not even just pull it off. That's not really on what I'm saying. Having him agree to a no trade clause with a 1-year deal is not something you just see every day. So, especially because he's a New York guy. He's not a guy from another state. New York guy, they like to be on the Knicks. They want to be by their family. So for him to kind of waive that on a 1-year deal, not knowing where your career is going to be, like usually it's something like, hey, if you're going to give me a no trade clause, you want me to waive that, give me more years. Like Paul George kind of had something similar to that situation in the Clippers. It's like, okay, well, you want me to waive my no trade clause, you're gonna have to give me more years, more money. And the Clippers are just straight up like, no. So for the Knicks to pull that off, it seemed like a miracle to me. It really
On
does.
top of that, to make him wait, one of the when he signed, he was the best available free agent. Everyone else had already signed with their teams. It took him weeks to finally put ink to paper on that contract. And he did that out of the graciousness for the Knicks because they were trying to find a trade partner for him. That's clearly what was going on.
Yeah.
Without needing that reporting, it's obvious. And then Knicks failed too. And so say, hey, man, we don't sign this contract. You might be traded, but are you willing to waive your trade clause if we're going to help you make sure that you're in positions to where you're having usage percentage opportunities. You can show your full repertoire on defense and maybe offense and get you a bad net summer.
I wonder if the rumor that contenders wanted him to have anything to do with it. Maybe in his mind, he think, well, if I don't finish with the Knicks, I can be with the contender and I'll still be okay. I don't know if that's the reasoning. I'm just hypothesizing. I don't know. But obviously, I still feel like the Knicks are still going to try to make a trade. And I know we were looking at Kessler. I still feel like that's really extremely far fetched. I know the Knicks are looking at Clint Capella. I can maybe see something like that happening. I don't know. Well, not even though, because Capella still makes $20 million, so I don't even think the money would work at that point. So I feel like the guys still on the list would still be guys who are making probably in that 11 million range, because then we can package him with something else and make a trade. So that could be the Wendell Carter Jr. we talked about earlier in the year, or I don't remember who else.
Jalen Duren.
Duren.
Yeah.
That could be something. We still have the Detroit pick, so maybe That's still if I really feel like Detroit is really going to trade Durant. I still have a hard time believing that. Even though that was the rumor out there, I have a hard time believing that Detroit would be that stupid. But that could be it. But that might be something to pay attention to moving forward by the trade deadline.
When I think about things logically and not wish fulfillment, because if I'm doing wish fulfillment, send gun, come on down. But that's my pipe dream. I might as well be smoking crack in between episodes of KOT, which I'm not. So I'm not going down to the send gun route. But I think all the young guys are out the window. If those guys were available, I think Tibbs would have pushed all of his chips in this summer to acquire one. I think he would have maybe overpaid or even used Deuce McBride in a Walker Kessler trade. I don't think he would have included Deuce McBride in a Durant trade, but I think he would have given up maybe 2 firsts for him. Protected, of course, not unprotected. I don't think that's going to happen because they're only going to get better and more valuable as the season goes on. But the veterans, I don't see Clint Capella's value going up at all. I don't know what scenario could happen where all of a sudden he's worth more in January than he is when the season starts or right now.
Right.
Those guys, the ones that are possible, are the ones whose their value is going to plateau and not rise because all of a sudden they're stat padding or they're adding different numbers or shooting better efficiency. So what I'm looking at the Washington Wizards, a team that we made a deal with on draft night, but we swapped our picks. Which means we have someone in the front office that enjoys doing business with us and is not going to fleece us, and we're not going to fleece them. We made a trade that works for both sides, which also means we have a pick that is more important to them and valuable to them than any other team in the NBA, including us. And that's that protected Wizards pick, which could convey this season, but it's top 10 protected. They just signed Jonas Valanciunas from the New Orleans Pelicans on a $30 million deal, around $10 million per. That is a Leon Rose contract.
Yeah, that's a steal.
Is it a Tom Thibodeau player? No. Now, Jonas is someone I've always liked. Yes, he is white. Yes, he's European. Yes, he is very kind of slow and plodding and methodical, but he's a dog. He's a roughneck, tough player. He's not soft. He's not Vucevic.
Yeah.
He's a very hard-nosed dude. And I think if we got him in spot minutes, like 18 a game, I think as a backup against other backups, he would thrive, even defensively. It's the times where he has a start when Mitch is completely out and he's having to hold the entire front line. That's where my concern comes. And I think he would really hurt our defense as a starting center. But I think he's absolutely a target. I think that contract was structured to make him a valuable trade chip, and the Wizards signed him for the sole purpose, not to compete or make the play in, because that's sure as hell. You don't sign him and then trade the Israeli guy to Portland to try to compete. Like you either keep both or you trade one and eventually trade the other. That's what they're going to do. They don't probably trade Jonas before a trade deadline. And I had a tweet that blew up. 100 likes for me is a blow up. I mean, I'm fairly new to Twitter, and I dropped this tweet earlier, and I also had a lot of bookmarks. But I theorized. I was like, hey man, what if we send 3 contracts, and those 3 contracts is a re-sign Precious at $6 million, Bates Dop at 2.6. and then Cameron Payne at 2. That puts you at 10.6, which means Jonas Valanciunas is making 9.9. We're sending out more money than we're back, and we include that Washington pick. Well, yeah, heavily protected, but now they don't have to worry about any protections or giving it up. It's absolutely theirs, which means they then can turn around and trade it if they need to down the line if it doesn't convey, or at the draft. They now have it in their pocket to prioritize and not wait and see what happens record and with the Knicks. That's a good position for them. I think that's a good package for them as well, to retain draft capital back under their umbrella and to have some young guys that then could be flipped later on or re-signed and used in further trades. To me, it makes a lot of sense. Precious could even be a key piece for them as they rebuild, someone who plays defense, someone who tries real hard and has a high motor, good for the locker room. So the type of vet you want when you're rebuilding.
Actually, that makes a lot of sense. Actually, it makes a hell of a lot of sense. Kind of the same reason why I said I felt like if anything was to happen, it would be Jalen Duren, because that Detroit pick is worth more to Detroit than anybody else in the league. It's the same thing with that the Wizards pick. Will Tom Thibodeau green light the trade is the real question, because you know how Tom Thibodeau is when he gets players he doesn't like. it kind of turns out right bad. But would he be better for the Knicks as a backup? Like, I personally wouldn't mind it. I personally would be cool with Valanciunas being here. I wouldn't mind that trade at all. And at least it's somebody who has the size to compete. The other problem still is that Mitch still is penciled in to miss minimum 30 games. So there's gonna be times where he's gonna have to start. And that's where you gotta have to figure out what he's made of, and have to actually to really hold down the fort. But I actually do not mind that trade.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can all agree, but there is no perfect trade out there for a backup center. But I think when you're thinking about Tom Thibodeau and Leon Rose, you want to maintain flexibility, both financially and with your assets. So if you're going to go in on somebody, you want to go in on someone who then can be flipped. If it doesn't work out, you can flip them easily later on. That's what hurt us with the Fournier contract. Is that 18 million at that time? What, 4 years ago now, was a lot of money for him, and especially for a player who was so one-dimensional and really could only shoot and never showed off his mid-range game once he came to the Knicks. So that made it tough for them. But Valanciunas, man, is a guy with a lot of playoff experience. He's a guy who had playoff experience in Toronto, then he went to Memphis, then he had playoff experience with New Orleans, and he's also, like I said, he's not your typical soft, white big man.
Right.
He tries on defense. And the number one stat that Tibbs cares about is that box plus minus on off. And he's pretty solid at that. He's actually has like an average, I think, of plus 71 for the season. He was like plus 30 last season, I believe. So there are evidence that he impacts the game on both sides when he's on the court. And I think we have enough perimeter defenders to where guys, he's not going to be having a lot of cleanup or having things funneled to him as a last line defense. He'll really be there guarding the worst opposing player on the other side. Now, that might mean some corner threes and, bad closeouts on shooters where open threes on us. But if it's a bid, if the worst player on the team is a bid, I think he can hold his own most nights going up against different guys. Now, will people torch him on bad matchups?
Yes.
Yeah, but overall, he gives you so much on offense. He gives you playmaking. He's a stout rebounder, both offensively and defensively, and he's one of the most polished offensive players in the league. I'm not going to call him a stretch center because his percentages don't show it.
Yeah, they dropped recently.
Don't show it.
Right.
But his mid-range game and around the rim, you think iHeart was unbelievable? This guy's 10 times better offensively.
And those are the reasons why I wouldn't mind it at all. It kind of gives us some versatility. And even though, like you said, he's not going to be the best defensive guy in your life, but he's still going to give us something to kind of work with. And he'll still give us room offensively, bare minimum. Jalen Brunson will have the room to do even more damage with him on the floor. Other things I still will have to look at, and we kind of talked about this before, I would still keep an eye on guys like Steven Adams.
Yes.
Who, like you said, was the Rockets, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was on the Rockets, and I can see him being flipped, and he's in the price range of somebody we can flip precious plus pieces for. Shoot, even somebody we talked about in length that we might not be all the way on board with, but is it his player? Is what's my man? The Portland Trail, Portland not Robert Covington, Robert Williams.
Oh no! Oh, okay. I
thought Robert Williams.
Ayton. I was like, don't say Ayton.
No, not nah, hell no, not Ayton. Robert Williams is a prototypical Tibbs player.
Yes,
I think in this scenario, if the Portland Trailblazers end up, playing, his value gets up a little bit. He shows he's healthy. I can see that being like, he's healthy now. Let's make a trade for him, see if he can get back. I can see something like that happening as well, because Portland, as you know, they're trying to blow everything up. So I will keep an eye on that as well. And still, one of my favorites is still Wendell Carter Jr. And you mentioned that last podly, and I actually love that idea, even though he's injured. Although he's injured a lot as well, but that's a guy who can give you a stretch five and give you defense and give you a little bit of mid range. I really like that idea. If that was to happen, I'd be ecstatic. If he was able to pull something like that.
That would probably take a Knicks pick or a swap. I think so. That would take more than those very heavily protected ones that we have.
Yeah,
And I'm for it. I mean,
that's worth.
I would
I'll give him a pick. I'll give him a pick for that. We in win now mode, man. I'll give him a pick. Of course.
I don't think that would trade Deuce McBride for him. To me, he doesn't have defensive player of the year or any type of ceiling like I believe Walker Kessler has. Walker Kessler's probably the only young player besides Sengun I would trade McBride for, but I would not trade McBride for Wendell Carter. But Wendell Carter, man, you're right. He's a true stretch five. He shoots a really high percentage from all over the field, and he has a great touch inside too. Strong rebounder.
Yeah, so I would do it. I would do it. I hopefully we'll see what happens though. We will see what happens, and we'll see because, like you said, the Magic have committed a lot of money to a lot of different players. So the well is running dry over there. So hopefully we can be the beneficiary of the well running dry. For sure. Also in other news though, another interesting tidbit mentioned by Ian Begley in his report. He said, with Achuiwa on board, the Knicks are 7.6 million below the NBA's second apron threshold. Things that make you go, So New York is hard capped at the second apron for the 2024-2025 season. So we have a little bit of wiggle room. And there are a lot. I just checked. There are a lot free agents left. Some of them, I'm shocked actually, are even left. So I don't know. Do you see any potential free agent pickups that you would like to add to the Knicks?
Thankfully, James Dolan might be a lot of things, but he's not cheap. And I like the fact that he's willing to dish out to somebody $5 or $6 million a year just for the concept of strategy. And to me, Leon Rose always has those guys at the end of the bench that will never play, but they will always be included in a trade. Guys like Malachi Flynn, guys like Shake Milton, the guys who can be aggregated and collated into trades to match salary. That way, you never have to worry about trading Deuce. And at this point, really, don't trade Jared or Sims either. There's no real reason to trade Sims. Keep him in the gym, in the lab, developing. It's nicer if you just keep him on the end of the bench. Maybe he doesn't play, but he's developing the G League, and you aggregate other salaries for guys that are further in their career and don't really fit the timeline. So to me, I'm looking at who's available. 3-and-D is, the law of the land right now. Robert Covington has a ton of playoff experience. He was actually a very integral part to the Philadelphia 76ers until he got injured. He was a part of the rotation. So why not pick him up as a 3D? I think he's 6'8", 6'9", can play some small ball center, but I'd rather have him as Randall's backup. He might even be able to crack the rotation in situational opportunities. And if someone goes down, knock on wood, OG Anunoby's probably going to be injured for about 25 games. He can step in and be a serviceable 10, 12 minutes a game in his steed. So, yeah, I like that. He's also one who, if you say, hey, man, we have to match salaries. By the way, are you okay with Robert Covington in the trade? Not many GMs going to say, oh, hell no. Well, I don't want that bum. He's a solid name recognition, highly valued veteran and respected veteran across the league. The type of guy that you want to collect just as an asset.
I agree with you. And it's funny. I was looking at the list because there's a lot of people on this list. I'm actually a few people I'm shocked they're on this list. I'm like, wow, he didn't get picked up. I thought he had a decent year. Well, it's funny because I don't have any. I'm just kind of surprised Isaac Okoro was on this list. Not that I would necessarily have a strong interest in him at this point, but I can't see him being a negative. Like, considering the fact that Isaac Okoro's 3-point shooting has jumped dramatically, he fits that mold. He fits that 3-and-D mold. So if you can get a guy who's improves his 3-point shooting for cheap, and he's known as a defender, and he can guard the other guy's best offensive player, I can see that being he's a restricted free agent though. So I'm not sure if it's a situation we have to match. Is that what the situation is?
Yes.
Okay.
We would send him an offer sheet if he signs it, and then Cleveland would have a certain amount of time to match it or to allow him to just be phased into our roster.
Okay. So that's probably not, they'll probably just match whatever. I think that's what it is. They just probably just match whatever. So he's not really. He's not really. Oh, okay, he's not really a realistic. A realistic get.
He might be for the right price to other teams. There could be a team. It's like, right, say Chicago. Screw it. We need more wings. Like, let's have some insurance for Giddy in case he goes to jail for hanging around the high school. Like, let's sign Isaac Curro to a 20-year, a $20 million contract. All of a sudden, Cleveland ain't matching, and now he's gone. So he is possible, just not really for the Knicks. He's not that realistic, but I love the kid. Love his motor.
Yeah, another guy. You might not like this, Lee. You might not like this, but I can see the Knicks wanting this kid.
Who's that?
When the Knicks signed Evan Fournier once upon a time, there was a guy they targeted before Evan Fournier. And his name was Gordon Hayward.
Oh, hell no. Hell no.
I'm just 46% from the field, 41% from three. Defensively, he's not what he was. OKC didn't really use him. Got more tired of him. Maybe it was the defense. I'm not sure. But the fact that the Knicks were interested in him for so long, if they reached out to sign him to like a mid-level exception, I can see that happening. I wouldn't be shocked. Is all I'm saying.
I would not be shocked either. But the question is, and this is why I like Covington more, what kind of value does he have at $6 million, even on an expiring 1 year? Do teams even want to like give him a chance because of his unavailability on one end and the other end? It was an unceremonious divorce between him and OKC. Like, you could tell there were bad vibes. He didn't want to be traded there, which then brings in the question, why would you not want to go to a contender, a team that was one of the most exciting teams and well-run franchises in the NBA? That, to me, the optics on that were, to me, a smack at his character. I thought it was like very unprofessional to not want to go to OKC and not value the opportunity to be healthy and playing for a contender that you haven't had since your days in Boston. That also, every year I have a guy who was the worst player that I watched in the entire NBA. Last year, Gordon Hayward was the absolute worst player I watched during his stint in OKC. Super cone, a cone that's like nailed to the floor.
Yeah.
He ball watched. He didn't even try, and it wasn't his shooting percentages got him out of the OKC situation. It was his defense, but it was also his effort and body language as well, which was ass. He was a terrible teammate when he was on the court. It looked like he didn't even want to be there and didn't want to be playing for the team.
I wonder if there's a thing that happens when you age as a player, especially when you're trying to get back to what you was, where you're not accepting your new role and you just kind of let that affect how you do things on the court. Like, I wonder if that has a lot to do with it, because you go into a team where you are definitely not the man, so you're not essentially a role player, and sometimes that manifests into attitude. We've seen it with a lot of these top players once they get into that part of their career. And I wonder if that had anything to do with it. So it's like, it really depends on his mindset too, because what happens sometimes is that happens, and then there's a reality check, like, oh snap, like, I gotta get my ish together. I can't do this at this next team. I'm just gonna play my role. So I wonder if that had anything to do with it. That's just a hypothesis, but that's something I've seen a few times watching basketball.
Yeah, Gordon Hayward has not been a plus asset since the Donald Trump administration. So I wonder, if Donald Trump gets reelected, will Gordon Hayward get his superpowers back? Will he be filled with MAGA joy to start playing like a shell of the former star that he used to be? So, because that's, maybe there's a correlation between Gordon Hayward playing well and Trump being.
Well, I hope he never plays well then.
Maybe the greatest effect Joe Biden has had on the economy is zapping Gordon Hayward up in superpowers.
Oh my God.
Yeah, man, Gordon Hayward, I don't think it's worth the risk. The dude is just, I think this OKC situation hurt his value as a professional. across the league. And I think if we sign him at $6 million, there's going to be like Evan Fournier. Like, you can't convince a team to take him. You have to add extra assets. I like Covington because I think you can trade Covington without having to add extra assets to get rid of him, because he's a consummate professional. You've never heard a bad thing about Robert Covington. And hey, man, dude plays defense and he shoots threes.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you. And it's funny because there's a lot of other people on this list that I'm kind of shocked on the list. Like, I see Luke Kennard on the list. I see Lonnie Walker on the list. Those are all, and these are like great shooters who play defense. So I'm surprised they're on this list. They're shooting guards though. That's why I really haven't mentioned them, because like I was like, if you're a shooting guard, you definitely don't have a priority to getting any time, any minutes here for sure. Maybe even Talon Horton Tucker is on this list. I'm kind of shocked because he's young. He was showing some flashes. Playmaking. I mean, his shooting percentage aren't much to cry home to, but I don't know. He's young and still has some promise.
Agreed.
I can see Bismack Biyombo. I don't know. I can see Bismack. That's the Tibbs guy. Block shots. Long. Maybe not much of a rebounder, but big body. You can cause some havoc.
There's another guy that I would consider that is in the same mold, both on and off the court, as Covington. That's Marcus Morris. I think bringing Mooch back would be cool for the locker room, even though I think only Randall and Mitch are still here from his tenure. Right, every other guy is gone, which is crazy to think about. But Marcus Morris, New York legend, for those 5 months that he was in the orange and blue jersey, I think he hit a couple game winners for us.
No, Marcus Morris was
Dallas.
Yeah.
I was at that game. It was unbelievable. He was a dog. Wouldn't mind having him back in the locker room, even if we end up trading him. He's shown that he's professional, and he's always ready in the playoffs to hit a big shot. And someone else that doesn't fit positionally, but I love as a human being, is Dennis Smith Jr. I really hope somebody picks up Dennis Smith Jr.
Me too.
I was hoping for a reunion in Dallas. I think he's earned it on his defense. Now, I wonder if Tibbs now would have the respect for Smith to give him spot opportunities or situation opportunities, because of how incredible of a point of attack defender. Statistically, one of the best, and it matches the eye test as well.
Yeah, it's crazy watching him play defense. Like in the last couple of years, I couldn't even believe what I was watching, because I was like, "This is not the same guy who was on the Knicks." That's crazy. That's super crazy. But I'm definitely with you on that Marcus Morris point. I actually looked at him too as well. I was like, "Would he get playing time?" I don't know. I have a hard time believing that he would come here and not knowing that he probably won't play, but I would love him here. But maybe he would play if I get now. If we're paying Precious, I feel like Precious would be Precious, and Josh Hart would be ahead of him on the depth chart.
Yeah.
And I would just have a hard time believing he would do it. But although he loves New York, he's obviously loves New York. Knicks fans still love him. Hell, you're the reason why OG is here. All right.
Right.
You're the reason why OG is here. And for those people who don't know what that means, like, we traded we traded Marcus Morris for picks that ended up being Emmanuel Quickly, and that man quickly ended up being OG when we traded with Toronto. So he's the reason why OG is here in the first place. He's the reason why we started becoming contenders. So I always love you for hitting clutch buckets and low key making us a contender. All right.
One more amendment to that. He's also the reason Steve Mills is fired. I mean, so just for that alone, we should give Marcus
That's
Morris.
right. That's right. Hey,
Steve
hell
Mills
yeah.
wanted to trade him. I mean, Scott Perry wanted to trade him, and Steve Mills wanted to keep him, and that caused the divorce of Steve Mills going back to the C-suite of MSG at executive level.
Exactly, because Steve Mills doesn't know what the hell he was doing. You definitely should.
But you know, if you look at his brother and how his brother has aged as a veteran, he's beloved in Dallas. He doesn't play in Dallas except for blowout opportunities, but he was the guys that spoke up in the locker room in that OKC series and the Minnesota series. Both of the times that he spoke up, the team turned it around, reversed course, and won those series. So maybe Marcus is just the same, and he can be someone who relishes his role as a veteran presence in the locker room and brings that toughness identity into someone that Julius Randle could use that type of motivation to keep playing defense and not ball watch. Right? That's the type of guy I would love to have on our team just for the locker room vibes.
No, I'm not against it at all. I'm definitely not against it. I would just hope he would want that because knowing his role would be limited. But I'm definitely not against it for sure.
Yeah, and I'm sure he's watching his brother like, damn, like his Markieff was over there's a part of that Dallas finals run. That had to be fun, even though he didn't play.
Right.
He was every press conference, he was shouted out as one of the most pivotal vets on that team. Hey man, New York, the fans already love you, Moot. Come back home.
Yeah,
baby.
come back home, Moot. Just come back home.
You're super close to your hometown of Philly.
That's a fact. And when we go to Philly and whoop them again in the playoffs, don't take it personal. All right?
Hey, and he played for Philly too. He knows some of the playbook.
Exactly. So you just tell us, give us the inside scoop. Give us the inside scoop. You won't get sued like we sued in Toronto.
You ain't lying, bro.
Oh man. But yeah. I mean, that's all I got. That's all I got for the players to look out for. And yeah, man. Big news for the Knicks, who actually pulled that Precious Achiuwa signing off with a no trade clause. Nuts.
Shout out Leon Rose for being one hell of an executive. I think he's already first place in the running for executive of the year. Just so it's always the margins that impress me the most is he thinks about big picture. He doesn't let any detail go unaddressed. And that Shake Milton signing was so pivotal in us pulling that Mikal Bridges deal off and not having to include Miles McBride. I think that this mid-level exception is going to be similar if he eventually uses it to aggregate salary later down on the line. And just the type of character that Precious is a man of character. He's a man who grew up in a Christian household. His mother was strict about faith and about being a professional. So he is someone who is going to respond in kind when he experiences that. So if a Precious like, hey, I'm going to sign my no trade clause, which is a 1 point of leverage he has, that means Leon Rose, he sees a good man in Leon Rose. And that's, man, to say that about our front office, because we've had some unbelievable dumbasses.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Phil Jackson, I'm looking at you.
Phil Jackson is
some horrible people in the front office. So, hey, shout out Leon Rose for being a great, great face of the franchise.
Absolutely. And margins is an understatement. These Knicks front office has been all about the margins. From I'm trying to trade down from the 21st pick, 26th pick to save 500,000 here, 500,000 there.
Yep. Every draft he does that.
And with draft picks, save 100,000, and then next thing you know, we save 2 million, 3 million. So now we use that 2-3 million to get this tax exception here or this extra player there. Like they really are about the margins, and that's why we are right now. Down to swooping in and signing Deuce McBride right after we traded away Manuel quickly on a really cheap deal. I keep saying, man, imagine if McBride wasn't signed and he had the performance he had during the playoffs in the year.
Fact. That's foresight. And I feel like after the Kemba Walker, Evan Fournier, and in some context, the Obi Toppin failures, and I think there's a plan in place. We're going to trade Randall, Obi slots in. That didn't happen. Randall became an All-NBA All-Star. I understand, MIP. Right. But that offseason of what can be looked at and described as failure was key for Leon Rose to go through and experience early in the tenure before we're a contender and it might screw you up to win that chip. He earned it when we were still in the development phase. So being able to get that out of the way and to learn from it, saying, I got to get players that fit Tom Thibodeau's identity. You can't force a round peg into a square hole. That was key because now the moves after All-Star or Star, there's no one on the market he doesn't get. He doesn't make mistakes. He gets the right guy, and he gets his guy every time. That's why I went that campaign signing. I was like, that was intentional. Either he is a perfect fit if Deuce is moved, or he's a perfect fit market value-wise if he's traded, or he's a perfect fit slotting in for injury if needed in the playoffs. That he was playing 4D chess when he signed him. So whoever Leon does or does not get, I trust him.
Great point. Really great point. Seriously, great point. It makes sense whether way you get it because you don't know what's going to happen. We can get Kessler. Who knows? We cannot. But wherever way we go, whatever player is behind the player, is going to fit in seamlessly with Tom Thibodeau's system, and we'll be fine. We'll be fine.
And not every GM makes those mistakes that early, and not every GM learns from them. What are the Lakers and the bad roster management that they've had since their championship? What are some of the bad moves that Miami Heat had made? Some of the bad signings that Boston made before a homeboy was in the front office, like that Marcus Morris extension. There are trades all the time, and draft picks and moves on the margins or in the front lines that can make or break your contention. But can you learn from them?
Yeah.
And you get it out of the way early.
Nah.
Heroes check every box
Yeah,
off.
yeah. Nah, that's a fact. That's a fact. There's something called failing fast.
Yep.
And that's exactly what he does. It's like you can't be afraid to fail, but as long as you fail fast. What does failing fast mean? Failing fast is you try something and once you realize it's not working, you move on quickly.
Right.
Move on quickly. And Leon Rose has seemed to do that for this Knicks team, and it's working out for us right now. All right, yo. Good show. Good show. And for you guys, we did not go live. This is a recording. I honestly thought this was gonna be a quick show, which is why I didn't even plan to go live. But if I knew it was gonna be this long, maybe I would have actually went live. But it's fine. Y'all can still enjoy the recording. All right.
Hit those lights. Hit those lights.
Yeah, please hit those hit that subscribe button, and yeah, we'll be back talking Knicks with y'all soon. All right, cool. That's the show. Thanks, guys, for watching. Lee, man, let them know where they can find you, man.
Man, Twitter, y'all been good to me. My one wish on my birthday was if you would have to follow, subscribing at the time on YouTube and follow my 3 cohorts in the time family. And y'all came through, man. I heard this. There were people who were subscribing. My homies Ryan, Jay, and Ebony would tell me people were following them. Did new followers? That's great, man. Like follow all of us. Each one of us is very nuanced, independent, no copycat takes. All of us do our research. All of us are deeply in love with this team, and all of us have suffered and understand the appreciation we have for what we're witnessing right now. It's a beautiful thing. I love y'all, Knicks Twitter. Well, not all of y'all, but most of y'all. I love you very much. Hey, shout out to y'all. Find me on Twitter, arguing with the bums @ _Leescobedo, LEESCOBEDO.
All right, and you can follow us at the KT Show on Twitter, the Nick of Time Show on Instagram, and the Nick of Time Show on Facebook as well. All right, that is the show. Thank you guys for watching, and as always,
shout out the Worldwide West. Everywhere we go, we leave a worldwide mess.
It's a mess out here. These Knicks YouTube streets. That's the show. We out of here. Peace.
York, New York, big city of dreams.